Welcome to the It's Your Business radio show, bringing you weekly advice from the best experts to provide you with insightful suggestions for your small business to allow it to thrive in the competitive marketplace. The It's Your Business show guides you through the uncharted waters of small business and gives you a voice on what can help you move your own business forward, to help you kickstart your business and put into practice all the information that they share.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the It's Your Business radio show. I am your host, one of your hosts, I should say, Melissa Coleman, and I have Anthony Coleman here with us.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. All right. Well, we have two of our, as I always like to refer to them, my godfathers of business, Sicardi Bruce and Rich Pisani. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning. And then we have a special guest with us because Rich and Sicardi run the St. Louis Ambassadors here in St. Louis, Missouri, and they have their young professionals group. So we have Mike Farmer with us this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Well, good morning, Melissa.
So excited to have you. So we are going to take this first half hour and introduce Mike to our listeners.
Great.
And so, Mike, I'm going to introduce you real quick and let everybody know a little bit about you. So Mike is a business development director at Meetings and Incentives Worldwide. And he's spent almost 40 years in the incentive business, working with companies large and small, creating rewards programs, and are effective in changing behaviors, whether it be incenting a sales team to sell more, motivating internal employees to be more effective, or working with customers to become more loyal. Coming out of the pandemic, Mike shifted his primary focus from incentives to employee engagement, and that's what he's here to talk about with us today. He's in the midst of study of HR policies at a wide variety of name brand companies to learn how their policies have changed in this era of employee shortages, and as a bonus, he's promised to share some of the best practices his research has uncovered. So again, Mike, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I couldn't have said that any better.
Well, this is great. So I'm going to let Anthony take it away. We're going to ask our first question because I have to say I'm quite curious what you have discovered, because I know since COVID, things have shifted so much for companies. And, you know, this is going to be really interesting what you get to share with us today.
Right.
Fantastic. Again, Mike, this is Anthony, and welcome to the show. I guess the first question, why don't you define to our audience today what employee engagement is?
Sure, Anthony. It's, it can be overcomplicated, but I don't want to do that. So we're just going to make it simple, and it's just engaging with your employees. So in a business sense, it's the emotional level that a manager is going to have with that employee, their coworkers, and the organization itself. It's different in many ways from what maybe your listeners would consider a traditional rewards or incentive program. It's not looking to necessarily change behavior. It's an engagement program is looking to have an effect on the emotional status, the engagement status, as it were, of that employee with the organization.
I understand. I really understand. It's hard to keep good employees, and so this is critical today.
Yeah, there's help wanted signs all over the place. Every time I go to a restaurant or a retail shop, they say, hey, you want a job?
Right.
People standing on the corner asking for money. I said, I can get you a job anywhere you want. Just go to a retail strip center and they'll hire you.
I know. And, you know, it's so funny because when you see all those signs, I'm always asking myself, what is everybody doing? Like,
Right.
Where are they? And
Where are the workers?
What are they doing? So, Mike, why is this important, and why now, what you're doing?
Sure. So, as you said in the opening, I've spent, my entire career on the incentive side of things, learning and helping companies engage their customers and employees to change behaviors. And it's always been a passion of mine. But since the pandemic, it's just been incredibly difficult, as Rich just mentioned. There's everywhere you go, there's help wanted signs. There's, you have trouble getting even proposals. I was meeting with a builder yesterday, just with a small group that I'm in, and he was sharing it's just challenging to get supplies. And so I started researching this, and I'm going to throw some stats your way that may be a little bit shocking. But let's start with in 2021. Employees that are entering their first career job. So this is not a MIC job. This is somebody that maybe is out of college, or a 20-year-old that's starting their first office job. So in 2021, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, they lasted only 6 months in that job before leaving for another job. And the important thing is the cost to that company to find, hire, and train that employee equates to 9 months of salary. So
Wow.
I mean, basically, that's 3 months of salary that they're dedicating to that employee that's just going down the drain. WorkHuman, which is a big science organization, business science organization, they estimated that in 2022, U.S. companies lost $500 billion.
500 billion, did you
employee
say, with a
turnover.
B, huh?
With a B. That's
Wow.
a lot of
That's
a lot
a
of
lot
money.
of money.
The U.S. Department of Labor, another study by them, 11.5 million people quit their jobs between April and June of last year. And that, again, goes to the first study that people just aren't sticking around. Gallup research shows that 48% of all employees are actively looking to change jobs.
Really?
Actively looking to change that. Half of your staff, whatever company you're with, half of your staff on average is looking to change jobs. And 25% of those employees will actually change jobs within the next 6 months, according to Personia research. And then the big daddy of them all, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the surveys, are 64%. This is another Gallup poll. 64% of employees all said they're unengaged, which means I come to work, I do my job, I don't really care. 15% survey basically said they were disengaged. That means they're actually working against the organization's goals. They're so upset with their company, they're working against you. And what that equates to, I'm not a math expert, but if I add those two numbers together, that means 21% of your employees actually want to be working for you in their current job.
That is
which is a
extremely low.
really small number. So this is a really, really big issue.
It sounds big.
Now, if you-
It sounds like a lot of companies either need to make some internal changes or maybe have a better way of hiring. But I'm thinking internal changes because everything has changed since the pandemic, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really what I've been doing. Is I engaged on this study of companies across all spectrums of businesses, whether it's retail, fast food restaurants, theme parks. I've been reaching out to human resources, and based on anonymity of their information they share with me to go into this study. I've been looking for what are you doing as an organization to help stem the tide of this turnover?
Mike,
it's
it's Sicardi. Let me ask you a quick question. Of this 60% or so that are dissatisfied with the way the companies are being run, how much of that is justified?
Well, the study didn't get into enough detail to basically go in to say, okay, why are you dissatisfied? Is that justified, unjustified? So I really don't have a way of answering that other than in my own conversations with employees and with HR departments. A lot of it is stemming from people, again, are just really not engaged. They come into a job, they don't really belong part of a team, particularly right away in what most companies have as a remote work environment. You don't create a friendship, you don't create a bond. And so you're kind of sitting in your home office all on an island all alone. And when frustration set in, you don't have anybody to share that with that says, oh, don't worry, it's going to change, it's going to get better. And that's really what this whole thing of engagement is all about, is being able to reach out to those people and to get them engaged.
So that's a good segue,
when those
Mike. Let me
frustrations do come in, then you can stop them.
let me segue into that because
Mhm.
on this show you got a lot of large companies, fast food companies, larger businesses, companies like that. And obviously we understand why somebody making $7 an hour will be looking to quit that job with the cost of living today. So I know you can't maybe go into detail, but tell us about some of the companies you researched and maybe what they're doing to combat this kind of turnover.
Yeah. So again, Andrew, the companies that I've researched can be international companies that have 100,000 employees, and they could be small retail companies, locally here where I am in St. Louis that I've spoken with that have 20, 30 employees. And really what I was looking for is kind of the same. It's like, what are you doing to make sure that people are connected? And so, I'd look at something like if you take a restaurant, right? So the connection point, somebody starts and let me say you've got a host or a hostess, you've got your waiters, and then you've got the people back in the kitchen. And so the host or hostess, what's going to make them feel good about themselves is getting the customer to the table right away, right? That makes them feel good. But then if the waiter is already burdened down in their section, well, now what happens is all of a sudden you become dysfunctional because now the waiter is not happy with the hostess for giving them another customer so quickly. And then the customers want their order in, and then the kitchen is not ready for that order. The food gets delayed coming out. And so now you've got customers that are unhappy. You've got cooks that are unhappy. You've got waiters that are unhappy. You've got, the hostess is, they're happy because the customer's off their plate. What you need to do in an engagement environment, in a functioning environment, is you need to teach all of those members to work together and to understand the whole process. And that generally, it doesn't happen as well as it should. And so now what happens is maybe that waiter will snap a little bit at that hostess, or the cook snaps at the waiter, and now the waiter's, upset. And so somebody down the street says, hey, you know what? I'm going to offer you 50 cents an hour more, or I'm going to offer you $1 more. And the grass is always greener on the other side. And they're going to say, I'm out of here. And I've talked with many people that have particularly in that industry, in that business, that have changed restaurants 3 or 4 times. And what happens is it never really gets better, with the exception of, a few large corporations, retail food corporations that really practice good engagement policies. It doesn't really get better.
And let me ask you, Mike, because it's been a while since I've been in the corporate sector of working for someone, and I feel like even as I was getting to the point of which I was going to be exiting the corporate world, it seems that companies, even prior to the pandemic, really had lost touch with their employees anyway. I felt like a lot of corporations were always like, you're an employee, you're a number, you're here to produce for us. I feel like even before the pandemic really hit, employees were, many of them in corporate settings, were already doing the job of 2.5 people for the same salary. So what is it a company can do to shift, and come up with a strategy to kind of change what's going on in their corporate culture?
Well, it's a great question. I think the answer is that they need to, from top down, take a look at, some of the stats that I just quoted at the beginning, and look internally and say, okay, are we wasting this money? How bad is our turnover situation? And this is a real issue. And now we need to solve that. And the way to solve that is with an engagement program. But an engagement program, and I'll be glad to give you some of the best practices that I found during this research. But a good engagement program by it just has to start from the top down. I've talked to companies where they've had middle managers that have said, Mike, I'm really interested in doing an engagement program. Here are the practices that I'm doing. And I can say, well, those are great practices, but those middle managers themselves are not supported by upper management. Whether it comes to, I want to spend some money on this, and then upper management says, oh, no, we don't have that budgeted. We can't spend that money. And so then what happens is the practice kind of becomes meaningless. The employee needs to see authenticity. And I can brag a little bit about the company I work for, Meetings and Incentives Worldwide. We have, as I was going on this search for all the best practices, I started comparing it to what we do in our daily lives at Meetings and Incentives Worldwide. And out of the 20 best practices that are out there, I think we probably do 15 of them, 10 of them extremely well. Some of them, we still need to be improved upon. But the bottom line is our senior executives routinely reach out to all of the managers and all of the employees and want to try and connect with them to make sure that they understand what's going on in everybody's lives. And it's just really important to build that connection with all of your employees.
So, Michael, real quick, that's interesting. I'm still in the corporate world myself. And since the pandemic, I have been totally remote. We don't have an office. We used to have 100 people there. We made friends. We had lunch together. We, went and enjoyed social time after work. And that's not anything that we do now. I mean, you are on an island. And so this new college kid coming out of school gets into a place where he can sit in his dining room.
Paradigm shift.
Yeah, that's a very big and companies have to have one thing ready to go, and that's adaptability, understanding the nature of what is now the new workforce and how they work. And so hopefully what you're teaching them out there is a way to be successful in that, and what this new employee engagement strategy looks for, because it's definitely not a cookie cutter program. Am I correct?
So meetings around the water cooler don't happen nearly as much.
No.
And the gossip column is way down. You don't want to be caught with an email or a text, right?
Right.
I'd like to say that's the case, but I don't know. I think via email, there's probably a lot of back and forth going on. I will say that, right before the pandemic, Microsoft had done a big study. I don't have it here in front of me, but as I recall, they were looking at the productivity of working from home and remote work environments, because that was kind of the trend, right? And it was surprising to me that even Microsoft themselves came back and said, while working from home does solve the problem of what the younger generations of working is, it does delay the process of getting product to market. And it's simply because, as you said, those water cooler conversations, if you're sitting in a boardroom or a think tank room with somebody and you're saying, we're trying to solve this problem, you don't come up with the solution. What used to happen is maybe later in the day, you're at the water cooler or the lunchroom, whatever, and you're just casually chatting with somebody, and somebody would say, hey, I was thinking about that. What about this? And now you have that further conversation. When you're working remote, you don't have those types of conversations. So you are missing that. You were talking about the young leaders, and I wanted to make sure as I was doing this study, I understood truly what the new business folks, the business leaders, what they're thinking. And so I've been interviewing college business classes and students. And of course, everybody, you would expect that you say, what do you want out of a job when you come out of school? Well, I want a corner office, I want a lofty title and so forth. But once I dig further with the conversation with these folks, what really became important to them, in addition to money, was flexibility in their work schedule. They really want to have a job with a company that's socially responsible. It makes them feel good, so that's important. They want to be able to work in hybrid environments. And they also want to play an important role in whatever project they're involved in. And those are things companies can do if they focus on that. If you look at it, I mean, a lot of companies, they have great interview processes when people exit the company, but they don't do a very good job of really getting into what an employee is looking for when they onboard. I, as a hiring manager, I've interviewed people before, but I've never really sat down when I'm getting to the point where I'm going to offer a job to somebody. I've never really kind of gotten into, okay, what is it that's important to you?
Right.
In terms of this. And if I knew that as a manager, then I could willfully engage in making sure that I'm helping them along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, when I had a printing company and running it, I found that the best solutions were when it was a win-win for management as well as labor. And I had 6 unions in my plant. And even with 6 unions, I was able to negotiate around union rules if it benefited both my company and the employee. Case in point, I wanted to increase the number of production hours without increasing my cost per hour through overtime pay. The way I did it was adding a second shift 3 days a week, and having each employee, then each pressman would have a 4-day weekend. I'm sorry, a 3-day weekend instead of a 2-day weekend, but they would work longer hours per day, but they'd get an extra day off a week. They loved it because they were fairly high paid. They all had boats and lake places, and so it was a win-win situation for everybody. I got my way. I got more productive hours at the same price, and they got more time in a boat throwing a lure out at poor little defenseless fish.
Yeah, you need to go help these corporations. Teach
That's
them.
a good idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I know.
that's why you were successful, is because I mean, that in itself is a form of engagement. You were able to figure out what your employees wanted and balance with what you wanted out of it, and you were able to get to the point where you could come to that agreement, and flexibility is a big part of it.
Yeah,
I think that's important versus the company having increased in more Zoom meetings versus coming up with something a little more creative.
Well, the
like that.
unions were very much against it because they had done a lot of negotiating to get a 7-hour day for the employees at straight time, and then anything over that, the next 2 hours was time and a half, and then double time after that. Well, we did away with that by going to 9-hour days at straight time, but the employees loved it because they
got 3 days
got
off.
3 days off. And the unions resented it at first, but then went along when they got pressure from their members to do it.
That's awesome. Mike, I have well, not really a question, but I want to share a statement. We did our annual Small Business America show the last 2 weeks, and a gentleman that we had on who is very much of the thought, as you stated, that things need to change from the top down, but he made a statement that you should hire for passion and train for production. And I'd like to know what you think of that statement, because I thought it was very powerful, because he really explained, with the client that he worked with, that, when people walked in that building, it's like you felt the owner of that company in every aspect of that business.
Yeah, I think that's a very great statement and a very accurate statement, because, if somebody is passionate about what they're doing, right, you can train them to do some of the technical work, the step-by-step work that needs to be done. And you could actually even sacrifice some of that for what that passion is going to bring. That passion is going to bring everybody that they're surrounded by. It's going to bring them up a level, right? It's going to inspire the people that are watching them to say, you know what, I can power through this busy crisis that we're going through right now, because I see the end result, because I see, this person that's really passionate. I see them working through that, so I can work through that with them. mean, passion really, really is important. Otherwise, otherwise you're going there, you're doing a job. You may say, hey, I want to work as hard as I can, but at the end of the day, it's just a job to me. And that's what we need to change is it doesn't have to be all encompassing. I would never want an employee to feel that they're sacrificing their family for their careers. As a matter of fact, in my work life, I was that person. I was the workaholic. I was always on the road. I was always working hard, trying to help my clients achieve goals. And I sadly have to admit, I sacrificed some of my family things for that.
Mhm.
And so now I coach against that. It's like you need to find a good work-life balance, and your company has to understand that good work-life balance. It's interesting at M&IW, one of the things we instituted is particularly during busy periods, our business can be cyclical during the spring and summertime. Our business can get really busy, and people have to put in extra hours to attain their goals. But what managers are empowered to do is simply say, "Hey, Mike, you know what? We worked really, really hard on this project last week. I want to give you 4 hours of personal time, but not only am I giving it to you, I want to make sure that you're using this for something that's going to fulfill your passion, that's going to relax you." Because again, the workaholic that I am, technically I would say, oh, great. Okay, I can turn off my phones for 4 hours and now I want to work on my emails. No,
Right.
We don't want that. What I, as a manager, I want to be talking to my team and saying, look, go to the zoo, go bowling, go to the mall, whatever it is. Tell me what you want to do and make sure you go do that, because man, there's nothing more relaxing than that guilt-free walk.
Right.
When you're walking the dog, walking around, and you're not thinking about work and things that you have to do.
Exactly.
And so that's one of those best practices that a company can do, is making sure they recognize when employees are going through difficult times or putting in the extra effort, and you're rewarding them. But the big part of that is not just the reward itself, but the fact that your manager is making sure you're using that reward properly.
Awesome. Well, Mike, we are actually getting ready to come up on break. I want to make sure you take this opportunity. We have about a minute and a half left to share how anyone that wants to reach out to you and connect with you, how they can find you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, again, the company I work for is Meetings and Incentives Worldwide, and so we're at meetings-incentives worldwide.com. And if you go onto our website, you'll see all of the services the company offers. But you can also find, I think if you do a / engagement on the site, you'll see all the back blogs, business blogs that I've written. And in that, you'll find, 15 to 20 best practices that I've discovered over the course of my study, which is ongoing. So that'll be helpful. And we're Meetings and Incentive Worldwide, where you're going to engage us as one is consulting on how we can make your business better and stop your employee turnover. And then we also have a performance platform, a software platform, which one of the things I think is great is our platform is very scalable. So small businesses, meaning 100 employees or so, can use that software very inexpensively to start their program. Traditionally, those type of rewards and incentive programs.
Hey, Mike, I hate to cut you off, but we've got the red light, so we have to go to break. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael. We really
Mike.
enjoyed your information.
Thanks to all of you. Have a great day.
You too.
If you're looking for a new informative health and lifestyle show to gain knowledge and inspiration to help guide your journey to think, work, and live more powerfully, then you need to listen to Sage Advice with Melissa. Now, whether you're trying to improve your life from a mental, physical, or spiritual journey, Sage Advice with Melissa Coleman, CEO of Sage Skincare, delivers weekly advice from industry experts to provide you with insightful suggestions to allow you to thrive with a better quality of life. Melissa's mission? To guide you through the uncharted waters of health and wellness and to give you a voice to help improve your life. So be sure to tune in to Melissa. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, listeners, saying thanks to your customers is nice and polite, but expressing your gratitude in memorable and ongoing ways can boost your business. At Promo Experts LLC, we exceed our customers' expectations. For over 20 years, our product knowledge and experience has helped them with their marketing initiatives and trade show graphics. We are happy to put that experience to work for you. Quality products, great customer service, and prices are our number one priority. We work with you to find unique, creative, and new ideas that fit your image and expectations, helping you build strong relationships with your customers. When you select Promo Experts as your marketing partner, we help you to see more than the big picture. For more information about this exciting opportunity, contact Diane Carson, President, at 636-458-5241. That's 636-458-5241. Let Promo Experts help you to move your business brand beyond the bland. Have you always wanted to write your own book but don't know where to start? Publishing Concepts, a publishing company located right here in St. Louis, offers everything from consulting, book printing, copyrights, ISBNs and barcodes, print book layout, ebook and iBook layout, graphic design, cover design, ghostwriting, typing and editing, distribution, marketing, and more for an affordable price. Visit publishingconceptsllc.com or just Google Publishing Concepts to get started today, or call 314-781-8880. That's 314-781-8880. Publishing Concepts. We help you sell more books.
In today's economy, there are more people looking to buy and sell businesses than ever before. When a company owner needs to sell their business, they can't just stick a for sale sign in the window. They need the assistance of a business broker to locate and vet potential buyers. On the other side, buyers rely on the broker to help facilitate the process of evaluating potential businesses and franchises for sale. A Transworld Business Advisor is the solution for both scenarios. Transworld Business Advisors focus on three core concepts: business brokerage, franchise consulting, and franchise development. Transworld has specialized in the sale of business and commercial real estate. Today, Transworld Business Advisors is a global network of brokers offering a turnkey solution for those that want to build a solid business and future for themselves while maintaining a balanced quality of life. With our comprehensive training program, full marketing support, and local field support, you won't have to start from scratch. Our trained experts and members will help you every step of the way. Transworld Business Advisors has 40 plus years of experience, 10,000 plus businesses sold, and 600 plus brokers, 250 offices worldwide. For a free initial consultation, call Charlie Scarlett, business broker, or Billy Rowland, business broker, at 636-400-6100. Again, that's Charlie Scarlett, business broker, or Billy Rowland, business broker, at 636-400-6100.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of the It's Your Business radio show. I am one of your co-hosts, Melissa Coleman.
And I'm Anthony Coleman, happy to be a co-host with Melissa.
So we are here for part 2 with Sicardi Bruce and Rich Bazzani. We are going to be talking about the second half of business planning. They were with us just a couple weeks ago, and we went over the first part of doing a business plan. So just in case you missed that, they will definitely be back with us talking about this again at a later date. So you can always re-listen to those shows on SoundCloud, also on YouTube, on KXOK Radio. That's the page. So you can find those shows there and catch up on all that we're doing here. But in the meantime, Sicardi, what will be your pricing, distribution, marketing, and PR strategy when you are building out your business plan?
Most people, when they start a new business, really should rely on outside help for something like this. Your marketing people, your advertising companies, or your accountant should be the people that you talk to about it, and get a broad range of the way you should proceed with it, rather than trying to come up on it on your own. You should listen pretty well to people that have been there, done that, bought the T-shirt,
Right.
and those are the people to deal with.
This is true.
Bought the T-shirt. I like that line. Can I borrow that?
Sure.
Thanks, Sicardi.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I'll pose this to you, and it's about organizational charts. You have a
Right.
company, and why is it important to have an organizational chart and job descriptions, areas of responsibility, that kind of thing? Why is that important?
Yeah, well, it's what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, like who's on first, and I don't know who's on second, and what's up on third, right?
Sure.
So if you have a baseball team, you need to know who the pitcher and the catcher are going to be: first base, shortstop, second base, third base, and the outfield. So you need to have an organization chart. So as an example, when I first walked into Xerox Corporation after my college degree, one of the first things that they had posted on the wall is an organization chart of the branch in St. Louis, showing the branch manager, the assistant branch manager, the sales, service, and administration managers. And they showed the pecking order, if you will, of every 321 people, Melissa, Anthony, they had working at Xerox. And I was curious. I thought, gosh, if I get chosen here, where do I start? And what is my potential climbing mechanism? So it's important to have that, just even for an employee. Like Mike Farmer just said, people want to be engaged. And one of the way to get them engaged is say, look, here's the way our organization looks, and here's the areas of responsibility and authority. These people can write checks. These people are the ones that make sure that they write them properly, and so forth. So having an organization chart is no different than having a baseball team, football team, women's sports, whatever. You got to have somebody on first, second, and third base.
And that gives them something to reach for. They know what the next step is in the organization. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I have a general question just for the two of you, whoever wants to answer. With what Mike shared with us as far as the restructuring of how businesses need to be, does this need to be taken into account when you're now building out your business plans and things of that nature as you're getting that business off the ground? Would it be beneficial to really be thinking about how you want to cultivate that culture in that business?
Well, many times you first have to decide if you do want to integrate that culture. You may decide not to. This is the important part about being an entrepreneur. You get to run it your way. And that is not necessarily the way the employees want it run. So you have to take into consideration what their desires are and try and factor into how that would benefit or not benefit the overall game plan of your business. And I think that's important to note. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I agree. And as an example, we've talked many times about our local client here through our company that Sicardi and I handle, the Pasta House Company, Italian restaurant chain. They've got 22 restaurants in the metropolitan area. And they had adopted decades ago, the BOB, B-O-B policy, the bend over backwards policy for the customer. The other way to say that is the customer is always right. And that's literally what the bend over backward policy was all about, making sure that the employees were on board with the BOB program. So what they did is they did a customer opinion survey first to find out what the customers thought of food, quality, service, cleanliness, etc. Then we did an employee attitude survey. And then the BOB program people came in and trained us and supported us on the BOB program. So bending over backwards for the customer was the integrated nature of the company, and still is to this day.
Interesting. Most companies, when they form their business, and either one of you can answer this, they got to go through the Secretary of State's office. And if they haven't done the right processes legally, should there be an S corp? Should there be a LLC? What advice can you give them on what to do prior to forming that company, Sakari?
Well, that depends on their goals,
Okay.
and they have to decide that again with outside help generally,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
if they're starting a new business, they don't have the experience and background to come up with their best ways of dealing with that. So that's where a CPA or a business planner that you would hire to advise you comes into it. I'd say probably in 60-70% of the time, you want to rely on outside sources. If it's a real small business, you can probably figure it out pretty
Yeah.
much yourself.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of choices, and some of them are very similar, but much more involved to maintain. For instance, if you're a regular corporation, there are lots of hurdles you have to jump to maintain that. You could, however, be a LLC, a limited liability corporation, which requires much less paperwork
Mhm.
for
Correct.
smaller businesses, which makes sense.
Right. Sakari and I just left a meeting this morning before we came to the radio station with the new chapter of the St. Louis Ambassadors called the St. Charles County Ambassadors.
Mhm.
They just formed a small core group of people to see if it made sense to do the same thing in St. Charles County as we're doing for the St. Louis Ambassadors for the whole region,
Right.
all 15 counties in the city of St. Louis. That's provide volunteer support to other local charities, Forest Park, and the St. Louis Zoo.
Sure.
So one of the questions that we had of the attorney, should we set up a not-for-profit LLC or a 501c3? And the attorney, like Sakari said, you need a professional to make the decision. Started asking a bunch of questions of our new chairman, John Walsh, and they are determining at this point whether it should be just an LLC not-for-profit pass-through organization, because they're not going to keep the money. They're just going to do events for companies
Right.
and for other organizations that are charitable foundations. So we'll find out shortly at the next meeting if we're going to be a 501c3 or a pass-through LLC.
And I think that's critical,
Attorney.
because at the end of the year, you don't want to have formed the wrong company and have to deal with it then.
Right. Exactly.
That's absolutely critical.
Especially when you're
Right.
dealing with cash flow.
Right.
Oh,
Right, right. So we've kind of flip-flopped. So I'm going to ask you now,
Yeah.
Rich. Why should you have a risk-reward financial plan?
well, it's interesting. Everything you do in life is risk and reward. If you think of a
Mhm.
personal business, whatever. But in our company, Sakari and I have had American Marketing Group since November 5th of 1978. We've been selling businesses and helping people franchise for that period of time, almost 50 years coming up. And one of the problems with our business brokerage division was this. If we got a great listing, we ended up buying it ourselves instead of putting it out to the market. We evaluated the business with our CPA and their CPA and came up with a what we call a fair market value
Right.
price. We ended up buying 9 of those, and it was all based on risk and reward. So when we sat down with our CPA, the CPA said, "You know what? You're right. This is a heck of a deal. Go ahead and buy it. If the guy's retiring or he's sick or there's a partnership squabble or a divorce or whatever, it's a very fair price." So we would finance it. And normally what would happen is we would have the seller play the bank. The seller would do the financing, would give him, a third down, and he would carry the note, or she would carry the note on the other 2/3. So it worked out very well for the other 9 companies that we bought.
Mhm.
And then what we did is built up the sales volume and the bottom line, and then we sold them for a higher price. So that
Right.
was how we did our business brokerage. We buy some of our listings,
Right.
which is good, which is bad, which is risk, which is reward.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Zakari, I'll pose this one to you. What are the business capital requirements to start your business and to cover your expenses for the whole first year?
One of the biggest mistakes that most people make when they start their own business is they figure out what it will cost them to run their business fairly well. But what they forget is they have to live during that time. And they forget that they have to buy groceries and they have to pay their rent and that sort of thing. So they don't factor in the kind of capital that is required to maintain their lifestyle. And this is in the much smaller businesses that
Sure.
I'm referring to. So this is why it's so important to go to an outside source, a CPA or a financial advisor of some sort to help you come up with the answer to those questions. And it varies widely depending on the type of business that you'd be in and how much you'd be financing yourself and how much you're going to be borrowing and paying then in form of repayment and interest
You got to pay
in order
yourself.
to do it. And that gets people in a lot of trouble. And that's why many businesses fail, because they don't take into consideration some of those personal costs that are involved
Right.
in running the business.
Yeah, when you look at buying a franchise as an example, they're going to give you the low, average, and high investment range for their franchise. As an example, the Pasta House Company will give you what they call the investment range, along with an earnings claim document showing you how much their restaurants do in terms of gross sales volume, expenses, and bottom line profit. And in some cases, there may be very little profit. In other cases, there may be like an incredible, like 20, 25% profit, depending on high volume stores versus low volume stores. So
Mhm.
the bottom line is it's important to know, not only the risk and reward, but if you're going to be able to make money at doing it. And one of the things that they bake into the investment range is reserve capital, which is what Sicardi's talking about.
Mhm.
So having reserve capital to make sure if you and I and Anthony and Sicardi started a business today, we're going to figure out what it costs to put the whole deal together for the Pasta House. Let's say that's $1 million. Let's say that you and I and Anthony and Sicardi need $50,000 a year to operate our own personal lives on for the first year. So we need $200,000 more in working capital, reserve capital, call it whatever you want, but that's to cover us. So we got the banks and the SBA possibly involved in covering the business side of it for the equity infusion. And our reserve capital is what we live on.
Mhm. There's a lot that goes into
Oh, it's a
starting.
gazenta.
It really goes
It's
into-
the biggest source of failure that people either underestimate it or don't think about it.
Mhm.
One of the two.
Yeah.
And that's where having a franchise really helps a lot, because they do a lot of that thinking for you. They tell you
Right.
you must have this, and if you don't, they won't sell you the franchise.
I think these two gentlemen are telling you, all the listeners, this more than anything.
Oh.
You may know everything about the business you're running, but get a professional to help you with your accounting and legal needs. Get a marketing company.
Mhm.
Don't try to be everything.
Well, you have to be everything, but you need advice.
Right.
In other
Mhm.
words, if it's a small business, you're wearing all the hats.
Sure.
You're the financial manager, you're the sales manager, you're the production manager, you're the everything
You're
manager.
everything.
But you need advice from people on the areas that you're not as familiar with, because if you've been working for someone, chances are you didn't have to do the financing end of it.
Right.
You might know the production end of it very well, but not the financing.
Yeah, since this part of the program is about business planning, when you go back to a franchise situation, like Sicardi was mentioning, they're going to give you an outline on the investment, the risk and reward, if you will, along with the reserve capital that you require. But they have a complete business plan ready to go to the bank and to your investment group ready for you. It's called a franchise agreement. There's an earnings claim document in there. There's audited financial statements, and there's the Federal Trade Commission ruling. It's a law that you answer these 22 questions before you can even sell a franchise. So if a franchisor approached us to buy a franchise, the four of us go, God, we get all excited at the meeting and we want to sign right now. The law says no. You have to wait for at least 15 days before you can sign the document. It's called a cooling off period.
Mhm.
So the franchisor, provide you with a business plan, which is what the second half of the show is all about.
I
Right.
think that stops
Yeah.
that post-purchase syndrome.
But that's part of what you buy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is
When
their
you buy a
business model.
franchise.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. Fantastic.
So this is actually a perfect question since we've been talking about money, but how will you get all the money you need?
Well, I will tell you that over the years, we've sold hundreds of businesses. We had 23 offices in the Midwest, and we sold out in 1981 that particular system. But the bottom line is, on any business that we were selling, you need to either get a personal loan, somebody in your friend and family circle to go along with your investment, skin in the game, they call it,
Mhm.
equity infusion. They can buy stock or if it's an LLC, a membership position in the company.
Mhm.
Get a bank loan. Good luck with that. Today's prices are 8, 9, 10%.
Right.
Now, if you're right on this line of the bank saying, well, I don't know if I should give Anthony and Sicardi a loan or not, we need to get the government involved. Now, that's good and that's bad, because the Small Business Administration, known as the SBA, will come forth and not loan you the money, but they will actually take Sicardi and Anthony and set them down and say, look, here's the deal. We'll guarantee Melissa's bank 85% of what she loans you. So if it's $1 million and you default after 90 days of no payments, you default, the government takes over your loan. And you don't want to mess with Uncle Sam. Believe me, you don't.
Right.
But if they say to the bank, Melissa, we'll guarantee you 85% of the loan, then that bank board will go, whew, okay, so we're not on hook for 100% of the loan,
Right.
only 15%. So an SBA guaranteed loan is how every one of the pasta house company restaurants got started in St. Louis.
Great.
But keep in mind that to get an SBA loan, you have to be turned down by how many banks? 5. You have
Oh,
to be
wow.
turned down. You have to have letters turning you down before you can go to the SBA to get a loan.
Did not know that.
And then
Yeah.
they go back to the banks, say, look, let's talk about it, guys. How risky is this? Well, it's semi-risky and we don't want to do that right now. Well, we'll take most of the risk off. We'll take 85% of it. Oh, well, then we'll go ahead and make the loan.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
that's how it works. You have to be turned down by 5.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I did not know that, and that's great news.
It's not so great if they all 5 say no.
Well, you have to go back to the banks, though,
Yeah,
with the
right.
5 that said
With
no.
the SBA guarantee
Yeah.
proposal.
I would think the bankers would know that. They would be like, well, you know what? Just decline them. They'll go to SBA. They'll come back to us, and then we'll give them the 15%.
Right.
When I went to, when I was getting married, I went to Florida to meet my wife's father and ask his permission for her hand in marriage. And all he said to me, the only thing he said was, she's a really, really nice girl, but, she's been engaged 7 times.
Wow.
She was waiting for you.
That's like the banks. You got to have 5 turn you down first.
Right.
Unbelievable.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
wow.
We're good. Your turn.
Oh.
Sicardi.
Oh, thank you, Sicardi.
Yes.
That was funny.
Yes, I know. I'm
Still
choking up here. I'm choking up here.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about professional teams to get everything launched legally. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry about that. Do you need specific legal agreements, licenses, permits, or drawings, etc., to get the right to operate a business?
Absolutely. And normally, most of it. If you're a builder of some, you've been working for a builder,
Right.
you've got a pretty good idea of most of the things, but you might not have much knowledge on the permits that are required
Mhm.
and that sort of thing. So you need some professional help in going about that. A friend of mine was a great carpenter and he had a good friend who was building apartments. He said, why don't you build some? He said, well, I don't know how to do it. He said, I'll take a year and teach you, and taught him how to do it. Became a multimillionaire because somebody took the time to teach him how to do all the permitting process and everything else that went with it, not just the hammering of the nails and
Right.
making sure the boards were straight.
All the
which is
details. Yeah.
A big deal.
Legally.
It's interesting. One of the general contractors that we work with that built and remodels all the pasta house company restaurants always walked into the room with this big rolled up piece of paper, real long, about 3 foot long. He said, here's my business plan. I said, what do you mean? He said, this is the architectural blueprint on how the pasta house company will be built and how it will look inside and out, all the details down to the nuts and bolts and screws that's going to put this thing together and hold it together. So that, the general contractor of anything needs a blueprint, which is in essence, like he called it, that's my business plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think we probably have about time for one more question. So, Rich, we're going to let you take us away at the end of the show. So, do you need a professional team to help you launch legally, which we've kind of touched on this? And
Yeah, we have. And like Sicardi said, you need a probably, if you're smart, you'll set aside money for this, but you need a banker, obviously, with an SBA guaranteed loan, maybe, if you can get turned down by 5 banks and one bank would agree to go with an SBA guarantee. You need a lawyer who can legally take you through the gauntlet, a CPA, a certified public accountant who can do your accounting for you. And again, like Sicardi said, decide whether you should be a regular C corporation like our company is. Back in 78, the LLC wasn't even around. So
No.
the regular C corp was just the way to go. Now it's
Sure.
like, seems like 70% of the people, like Sicardi mentioned, go with the LLC.
Mhm.
But the bottom line is you need a consultant possibly for your company. A franchisor gives you the business plan, as I mentioned earlier, and a business advisory board where you can join networking groups that will help you get prospects for your business.
Mhm.
You need all the above.
Now, the business advisory board not only helps you get prospects, it helps you design your business and solve your problems, because it's a group of people who are in dissimilar businesses
Mhm.
but have similar problems. And most businesses are that way.
Yeah.
But these are non-competing people who sit as a board for you, and you sit as a board for them in monthly meetings and discuss issues of interest to everybody. And you might say, well, I have a union contract coming up. How do I handle this best? Well, I did that 2 years ago, and here's how I did it.
Sure.
And you get ideas on how to do things.
So
So
that's what the
These
business
mastermind
advisory
groups,
board
by the
does.
way, cost you anywhere from $100 a month to belong to, or up to $1,200 a month, and they're absolutely well worth it. You meet
Yeah.
once a month, you get some very interesting information from the group. They're
Wow.
your advisors.
How would a person
become
join
your
them?
advisory
Are they
board.
invited to join those
I'm
boards?
sorry.
How do you get on those boards? When they invited by?
Generally, there are companies like Rich and I have one where we put together the board
Okay.
for people. However, you can also, let's say you have 6 friends that are in different businesses. You
Sure.
can do it that way, or
Just create the board.
family members or whomever.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a company out there, the largest one on the planet is called Vistage, Vistage, out in California. So you can join them, and they're in that high end range, but
Sure.
they're very well worth it. They meet one full day a month, and they have guest speakers come in that have written books, male and female alike. And it's unbelievable what you get out of that advisory board that you have for your company.
Sounds like it.
Mhm. Well, gentlemen, we are actually coming up on the end of the show. So, Rich, share with how everybody gets a hold of you and Sicardi and get your
Will do.
assistance.
Yeah, you can call Sicardi Bruce or Rich Pisani at my cell phone number. I'm going to give it to you that way we know it came from the radio show. 314-952-2640. Again, 314-952-2640. Or if you prefer, you can go to our website, which is AmericanMarketingGroupInc.com. Again, that's AmericanMarketingGroupInc.com. Thanks, Melissa.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
joining
Melissa.
us. Thank you,
Thank you,
Anthony.
Tony.
Thank you, Melissa.
for
Thank you.
taking me as my co-host, and we'll be back for more fun next month.
Great.
Yes.
Great day, everyone.
Thank you.